Fancy options. Okay, so welcome back for day 2 of Taking Back Your Power, you in charge of your life, #4Power. And today we're going to be talking about the second way that we give away our power, and that's our purpose. Okay, so there's 4 P's, if you didn't get that, and that's today's is purpose. And I wanted to rewind just a bit and make sure that I'm clear with expectations and like my vision for what this is. Yesterday I just kind of dove in per Dory style, and afterwards I was like, oh, I could have laid a little bit more groundwork there. So again, I want to make sure that my goal is that you guys have an experience every time we meet, that there's clarity being gained, there's self-awareness that you're entering into, you're honoring your feelings, you're honoring your memories, your triggers if they're coming up, that you're having an experience, because this is not like a dissemination of knowledge, because I don't know anything more than you. It's just we have a role of holding space for one another. And so the real goal for me is for us all, honestly, to have an experience during this. So that's really my goal, is not just to give you information, that's half of it, but the other half is for you to have your own experience where you're touching in with yourself and your own core, right? Because you guys are already whole, you're already perfect, you're already healed. And the healing work is about discovering the wholeness and healing that's already there, and you having the power, the self-empowering action of uncovering your own wholeness as your own healer, right? And I just hold space for that. I just invite you to that. So very much it's my goal for you guys to have your own experience and take your own notes, and really that this is self-guided process for you as we go along. And I absolutely intend for you guys to have fun, for this to be enjoyable, for this to be real, and for you guys to feel motivated and energized for the work, and from our interactions to feel like, she's done it, I can do it, she's doing it, I can do it, because I'm not a guru, I'm a person. And the minute that you set yourself up as a guru or some kind of saint, you've lost touch with everybody else who's down here on planet Earth. And my feet are down here too. So part of, well, all of my power comes from my story, that I've lived this and done this myself. And again, gave myself permission, realized that I was my own purpose, like all of these things that I'm talking about, it's because I've lived it. And so this is really real to me. And once you go through that, once you do the work and you engage with your own shadow, with your own story, and you really get in it, that's not something that you take notes on. And that's not something that anybody can ever take away from you. It becomes the new you of who you now are. It's transformative experience. It's like puberty. At no point in time can you ever go back to before puberty. It changes you. And so that's my desire for this work too, is that you get your own empowerment process that is your own empowerment puberty, if we could coin a phrase, where you are changed. And you don't have to like write it on a bracelet or write your note and have your affirmation on your bathroom mirror. When that's who you are, that's who you are. And that you bring that into your day and everywhere. Your relationships, your own self-talk, your relationship with your own God, at work, with your money, like every part of your life, when you have that transformative, deep work occur, it naturally goes out into the rest of your life, right? So that's my goal for you, is again, just to tell my story, not because that's how it should be. Mostly there's a lot of like what not to do. And, just so that there's kind of some narrative there, because we, emotionally respond to narrative and story. And your guys' everybody's story is their own. And I'm just sharing mine as a platform to kind of inspire your own natural healing abilities to well up in you and kind of get your mojo going. So that's my purpose. And that comes from my belief that we are all already whole and healed and perfect, that we are already in touch with everything that we ever can. There's nothing more that we can attain here in life. We're not here to become more. We're here to uncover, and really for the fun of it, okay? It's just for the fun of expressing and creating who we want to be throughout our lifetime, and through the story that we weave through our time here. And then in any given moment, how we want to show up for ourselves, for ourself to show up, right? Not because it's going to impress you, or I'm going to put like the smack down on somebody or whatever. It's about how I want to experience myself in any given situation. So my underlying assumption is that we are all perfect, we are all powerful, and we are already everything we want to be. We just go through this game of uncovering it together in relationship with other people, and as a way to unfold that, watch the unfolding of it. And again, like I said yesterday, it's because we deserve to have a good life experience, and the things that the world most needs has already been birthed in us in our deep self. And the more that we let out who we truly are, the more we're a blessing to the world. We help heal the world. We help them on their experience of abundance and joy and love and peace and serenity, the more we're in touch with ourselves, right? So that's like my big vision of why I do this work and where I'm coming from and my belief about you guys. And I wanted to also take a quick step back to yesterday, and I talked about a lot of stuff like political things and religious things. And I just want to make sure it's really clear. I have no dog in the fight as far as in people's individual beliefs or what they choose to do on the voting ballot or what have you. My investment is that you are coming from your truth, right? So no matter what it all shakes out as, right? Because anytime you have polarity, you're going to have people on both sides. Having contrast is not the problem. It's having people that are gridlocked and anchored in that as their identity, and they can't even hear somebody else. That's the problem. So anytime you have polarity, if it's coming from a person's truth, they're going to be open to dialoguing and talking and healing and restoration and being like in communion with other people. And so I'm not advocating people take any kind of a certain action or stance on anything, but just that the more that we are all rooted in the truth and divinity and the beauty of who we are as individuals, from that point, what we bring to the world is inspired, right? We're not just, you know, playing out these old tapes, cultural, family, personal, whatever, because there's no life in that. That's just a dead tape, right? That's when we have the conflict and we start killing each other over stuff. But if we're rooted in our truth, that frees us up, that frees open our heart to be able to hear and talk with people. So I'm not advocating any one particular outcome. And I do talk about politics and religion and finance and schools and university, because that's part of our life story, because that's where we choose to play these things out at. But where everybody goes in their own personal story is completely something that I leave, you know, for you guys to work out for yourself. There's no, I'm never going to advocate, I want you to vote Republican or Democrat or like something like that. So I just want to make sure that's clear. My only investment is that each person feels in power and in tune with who they are and able to live out their own truth. Okay, because my sole belief is that when we all do that, that is beauty, that is love, that is perfection. And then we can hear people, even if they are on another side of the, you know, opposite or complementary point from us, that will be something that is life-giving, where it's harmonic rather than concordant, right? And then it's destructive. So I just wanted to make sure that I laid that groundwork properly. All right. I'm going to breathe. And if I start talking too fast, you guys say slow down, roll it back. So I get going. So today's talk is about the second way that we give away our power, and it's our purpose, okay? Not being in line with our own purpose. And when we're on purpose, now I will also qualify this. There is, like we've all heard of the book, like A Purpose-Driven Life, or The Purpose-Driven Church, by that big famous pastor from Saddleback. I can't think of his name. And like many people go on like this spiritual quest to like find their purpose. I'm not talking about none of that. To me, that is all very external. And I sometimes don't even like to think about my life purpose, because I feel like it's the slippery slope of having to justify and validate myself. And I don't believe in that. So when I'm talking about purpose, it's, again, it's coming from you. Your purpose is coming from you. And that looks like two ways. The first way is that you are central to your own story, and that is your life's purpose. Okay, so one of the big things that I see this going wrong and people give away their power is that their purpose becomes these codependent relationships, right? I don't exist for me. I exist to serve this codependent person who's needy or dependent on me. You know, could be a child, a husband, a boyfriend, could be a girlfriend, could be sick coworkers. I mean, toxic coworkers are a huge problem in our country. So it can be anywhere. But whenever we start making decisions based on the good of somebody else, especially to our own detriment, we have sold off our purpose. We haven't given ourselves permission to be central to our own story and to have our own purpose and to let us be our own purpose, right? So we have self-care, we have self-love, when we're nurturing ourselves, that is when purpose is going right, okay? The bulk of our energy should be funneled back to ourself. And I have a visual for you guys. Let me do a screen share. And I want to show you, beep, beep, beep. I guess it'll be this one. I'm very visual. So if you guys have ever seen like, there's a single point, there's a shape that's a single point, it's a donut, okay? So it's like a donut. And you know, there's like triangles with 3 points and there's squares with 4s. Well, there's one, and it's this electromagnetic field, right? It's this like circular round shape that folds in on itself. And the point is the center point, and it's a cycle where it goes down and it comes up, right? I mean, you can also reverse it, whatever. But the point is that it wraps in on itself at some point. So can you guys see the screen here? Like this big one. Where's the other one that I had? This is a big one. This is nice and big. So can you guys see that donut shape? And imagine arrows on all of those lines going out and then funneling back towards the person, right? This is my vision of how the bulk of our energy should be, right? Our concern, our love, our care, our investment, like how we spend our energy, that should be coming back to us, because none of us can pour from an empty cup. And yet what will happen when we're not on purpose to ourselves is that we give away that energy, and then it's just frayed, right? It's just kind of fractured. It's just going everywhere. It's crazy. And this has like a cycle, right? It's consistent, it's routine, it's stable. And so this is just, again, just a graphic. There we go. There we go, pop back up. So when we have that energy, like that's just kind of a visual to be like, that's how our energy should be. What is energy, right? What's energy? Energy is time, like all of our finite resources, earthly finite resources, quote unquote, time, money, our attention, what we think about, what we care about, who we allow in our physical space, right? Like who we choose to engage in. And so all of those forms of energy, those are all forms of energy. There's a lot more, you know, whatever comes to you is right for you. But when we are squandering that away and it doesn't come back, because the same thing can be had in a relationship. If you give, you should get. Now, it's not always 50-50, you know, sometimes you're giving. If somebody's in crisis and they need you, you give more, but at some point that should come back. Like over time in aggregate, the big essential method and pattern should be that it's fairly consistent, right? It's a flow, in and out, in and out, in and out, right? So if I'm in a relationship where there's only one way and I'm giving, and nothing's coming back, that's a problem. That's a red flag to me. And then on top of that, if I continue to give after that starts to be to my detriment, that is even, like now it's in crisis mode, right? So I have a derelict son, and he's always wanting money and wanting my time and come to me with crisis and problems, and I give it to him, right? And it's one way. I'm not getting it. He doesn't pay me back for the money I loan him or the money I give him. He doesn't bring me flowers or thank you cards or come help around the house. He's just taking. And then like now I can't pay my electric bill because like now my retirement account is getting drained. Like now I'm low on gas, like he's eating all my groceries. So once it starts to like lessen my personal well-being, I have at a crisis point, right? So these dysfunctional relationships are a huge signal. They're a huge symptom of us not living in our purpose, of us being central to our own story, right? And so if everybody is central to their own story and focusing their energy back on themselves, we would all be self-sufficient. We wouldn't have to depend and have these codependent relationships. I'm never going to come to you and go, oh my God, I need you to listen to my problems and validate me and like co-sign my bullshit. Like I need you to do this. No, I'm going to be out here living my best life. You're living your best life. We're going to go out and have fun, right? We're going to raise the collective energy together. We're going to go out there and like jam on it and have fun instead of like these drains coming, right? So that's kind of like the first part of it. And then the second part is when you're living on purpose, you taking care of yourself, your own self-care, your own self-needs, you then take what extra you do have and you invest it on what's important to you, right? What's important to you? What is your life purpose to the world? again, like quotes, because I don't believe such a thing really exists in a concrete way. Maybe you care about, like, I don't know, like homeless, starving animals, and you want to work with PETA and the lady that sings that song on the commercials. Maybe you care about like political issues. Maybe you care about your local homeless population. Maybe you want to give money to these huge, like, I don't know. But whatever your heart beats for, whatever has your attention and your heart, and you just think about and love, and you would just do anything to help this population of people or, you know, persons, you know, issues, that's your like secondary purpose, right? And so like when you allow yourself to fall, that's your passion. That's your passion. And when you allow yourself to get into your passion and really invest yourself in that, again, that's going to be an energy positive exchange. You know, you are going to get filled up, you're going to get fueled from that, you're going to feel, you're going to be in the flow, you're going to be in the spirit, you are going to have resources come because you're tapped into now moving energy in and through you. You're pumped up because your circle's working, right? That donut, your energy circle's on point. And then from that full space, your attention's going to this outward cause, and now you're able to funnel energy, finances, time, attention, love, care, what have you, towards this outside because it's important to you, and that lights you up, right? So I have, and I don't know for you guys if this is, you'll relate, but I've talked to a lot of people that say, I care about this cause, but I can't do it because, right? And if you've ever been in that situation, it's a very soul crushing experience because you're not able to live in your truth. And so again, it's the not living from your truth, not living from your core that really causes that problem of not living in your purpose. The people out there are fine. They're having their own experience on earth. None of us truly need each other in that way. We just do it for the fun of it, right? But when I'm not living in my purpose, that's a problem. So that's the second way that I see us being in our purpose really, again, and dysfunctional relationships is like a really easy catchphrase, kind of a stereotypical thing to do. But again, it could be anything. It's anytime you are misinvesting your energy and spending it on something that's the wrong thing for you, right? Anything that's the wrong thing for you. I also feel like this happens a lot at like work. There's a lot of work scenarios where, you know, I'm there to get money, you know, and if I can accomplish my purpose, that's all the better. Some jobs do that, some jobs don't. But when I come home more drained than even the money that I'm bringing home, suddenly it's not worth it anymore. Or if I'm taking so much abuse from my boss and coworkers that I'm energy negative and every day I'm coming home just drained and depleted, I'm really not even producing enough. Because again, money is energy, time, attention, care. If you're so low in time and energy that the money doesn't make up for that, you're still not supporting yourself through that process, right? You're not on your purpose. You haven't accomplished what you needed to do, which was earn something and like level up, because you just got drained the heck out, right? So again, there's all sorts of different ways that it shows up for people. Some people really find a lot of energy drains as far as money. Others, it can be time. Some, it can just be that care and like dealing with other people's crises. And then you don't ever deal with like your own basic kind of like just self-care. Or again, like we all deserve to have that second level of like, I have extra margin in my life. I have extra money. I have extra time. I have extra that I can now put somewhere that I care about, that I direct, you know, not somebody else coming and claiming it from me. I'm directing the flow of my energy, and it's purposeful as what's important to me. It could be crazy or stupid. I mean, some of these like astronauts that are doing like this cryogenic thing and sending rockets to the moon so they can live forever on Mars, like, you know, it could be crazy, but if that's what's in your heart to do, you don't have to justify it to anybody. That's your passion. We all have the right to follow our passion to whatever it is that looks like for us, right? Okay, and then I also realized I was gonna go back for anybody who's learning with us and talk about our little worksheet. So as we're talking about who am I allowing to define my purpose, this is our Zoom class today on 8/2 on August 2nd. So if you have things that are coming up for you, this is the perfect time to enter it into the worksheet or on your journal page. Who is defining your purpose? If it's not you, somebody you have given, again, you've given your permission to somebody outside of you to define and tell you what your purpose is. I also had this again with my religion. Like, my religion assigned to me what my purpose was, right? And I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I wasn't really allowed to define my own purpose. Like, there was a list of people in line that got to assign to me what it was before it even got down to my preference, you know, on what color the apron was going to be, frankly. So, you know, and again, I had to give myself permission to let myself live on purpose of what my purpose was, and like to take personal ownership over what is my purpose, for just self-care. And this makes me, again, religion's another culprit here. And I'm not even picking on monotheistic or Western culture. In Buddhism, they have two different kinds of Buddhism, the greater vehicle and the lesser vehicle. The greater vehicle is the one where you're invested in helping other people on their journey. And it makes me crazy. If we all took the energy that we're given to everybody else codependently and just no rhyme or reason, just reactive and it's just all crazy. If we took that energy and put it back on ourselves, nobody would need to be saved. Nobody would be, you know, like at this destitute. And I'm not just talking about, I mean, it's like spiritual, it's financial, you know, because you can't have this big drain and stay balanced. It's going to pull you down eventually. And so when we have these spiritual, which is the foundation of our life, when we have these spiritual teachers telling us that we need to be more invested in other people to be good or godlike or saintly, then that robs us of our ability to take care of ourselves. And sometimes that's like I mean, again, it goes to different extremes. It makes me crazy, because that's like, well, if I took all of that energy and I pumped myself up, and I really nurtured myself, the excess that I have in that scenario is way more than what you're stealing from me. I'm allowing you to take from me to begin with. Like, have you guys ever had that? Like, when you slept all night, you had a good lunch, somebody calls you up and you're like, oh, not a problem. Like, let me help you with that. And you're fine because you're good to go, right? And then you have joy in your heart giving to this other person. They're helped. Everybody goes home happy, sleeps good again the next night. Super easy. But when we're coming like off of this deficit, and we're just running on a deficit continually, the little meager amounts they're getting from us doesn't really help them. It's nothing that we can give with joy because we're depleted, right? Like, I can't even give joyfully when I haven't eaten, I haven't slept, I haven't paid my own bills, I haven't spent time with my higher power or my family and what's important to me. I'm depleted. I can't even give anything of worth or value to you in joy. You're just sucking it from me, you know? And again, like, taking care of yourself first, what you have left to go over. It sounds selfish. It's very counterintuitive to how we've been culturally conditioned to think of it. Everyone says that's selfish. Yeah, it is. Because the other alternative is to be outward focused, and that doesn't work. I mean, I can't eat food for somebody else. At some point in time, I'm going to have to nourish myself, right? Like, you get it? Like, at some point in time, I'm going to have to take care of me. And like we talked about permission, like women in power and permission, and having our own finances. You know, women have, we've been taught and allowed ourselves to just be destituted and poverty stricken by all of these messages. So part of my story is that I had a marriage that I needed to leave, and I had 2 small children, and I went to college. My degree's in sociology. So all of this like culture, like, I'm always all about the culture. I'm always like, look at the group and look at the society. Like, nobody's in a vacuum, right? And I learned that pretty much any action a woman takes leaving a marriage is going to make her less well off socioeconomically. And I knew that I had to leave my marriage, and I knew that statistically I was looking at being a broke single mother with my kids, and I wasn't having it. I just made a decision. I said, no, it's not going to happen that way. I'm not going to take my kids out of this bad marriage to be destitute and poverty stricken. I refuse. So when I left that marriage, and it took me several tries, I went back and I got a job. That job didn't make enough. I went back, I got another job that made more. That didn't make enough. I went back and got another job. And I just kept pushing that career hard because it wasn't a win for me to take my kids into poverty. And I knew that unless I amped it up in that area, that I wasn't going to be able to give them a life, right? I mean, doing the food stamps and the WIC thing. Poverty is also a state of mind, but it's like, I wanted them to be able to have what they needed, and like not have that stress of provision, not worry about daily necessities. I wanted their childhood intact. You know, I didn't want them to have to be concerned about adult financial matters and to experience that. And so when I left, I gave myself the permission to put myself first on purpose. And one of my main purposes the last several years has been, I'm going to take care of these stinking kids, and I'm going to do it nicely. Like, I want to live nicely for them, because I wasn't going to give up that power to just go be like this very typical kind of played out scenario. Like, we've done the single mother routine enough, right? And I realized that I had a lot of advantages, because if I hadn't had that bachelor's, it would have been hard. It would have been a lot harder. So that was something that I thank my lucky stars for getting when I was 30, right before I got married. But, you know, it's like giving yourself that permission and having that purpose and driving your efforts towards that. And then being able to take that and say, I deserve this, my kids deserve this, I'm going to make this happen. And then moving forward from that truth. And it took time. It took a lot of time. It wasn't like it was an overnight thing. It was very difficult and I mean, there was a lot of drama, a lot of dramatics with that process. But that was part of my own purpose as a mother, was to take my kids to at least an equal situation financially, with me doing what I had to do for me. And again, with that permission piece, that was something that I really struggled with, because I felt like, do I have the right to take my kid's dad from them? Do I have the right to take them potentially to be poorer, you know, to not have two incomes? They're going to be from a broken home, you know, and we really set ourselves up in our culture to pit the needs of parents, especially women and mothers, against the needs of children. And we have a culture that really fuels that war. I've talked to so many women who have been in a situation where they feel like if they do, and this is like legitimate abuse. I'm not talking about he doesn't do the dishes right. Like, there's obvious cheating, there's obvious abuse, like on different kinds of levels. You know, women don't feel like they have the right to give themselves permission to go to a better situation because they're indebted to the kids. And like this idea that kids can flourish in a sick home, you know, which I think we all know that they can't. And it's something that I've seen a lot of women wrestle with and struggle with. Like this, putting all the components together, right? So I'm gonna check my notes here. I'm gonna breathe, give you guys a chance to breathe. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I am gonna pause there. Do you guys have questions, comments, feedback, objections? I see you guys writing notes. Diana, go on.
I see you. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said about even leaving situations that maybe sometimes we may be afraid of leaving, like you said, you left a marriage. I was not married to my kid's father, but all three of my kids do have the same father, and he was the financial provider. I tell people that he was a great financial provider. He was not a good mate for me. He was just not a good mate for me. And I saw kind of early on, because my kids are so close in age, he didn't want to come home at night, or, you know, he wanted to do other things. So I had to make up, I guess, in my mind, is this going to be okay for my kids to see when they wake up in the morning, dad is not here, or we don't know where he slept the night before. And I guess a lot of times people are afraid of walking away because, hey, I don't have a job right now. He take care of everything. And what am I going to do? And sometimes men feel, or people feel like they have the upper hand because they bring this to the table. You're not going to leave because you can't make it without me. So you do have to make a thing. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to go back home to my mom. But at least I go back home to my mom with a peace of mind, knowing you're not out in the street doing God knows what. And at any given moment, when you get tired of us, you're gonna leave us out in the street. And my kids didn't deserve to wake up and say, where's dad? Because that's dysfunction all in itself. They know mom and dad are in the household together, but he's not coming home, but yet all the bills are paid. We live a certain lifestyle where we have cars and everything is taken care of, but my mom is emotionally a mess. So you have to make those decisions. And I tell people all the time, I think that's the best decision I decided to do is leave. And they're probably thinking, well, you took the kids away. Well, no, my kids wouldn't deserve growing up knowing that my dad didn't come home and my dad started making kids outside of my mother and his relationship. How healthy is that? And you just rebuild, you know, it's not always the best situation, maybe going back home to your mom or to a family member, but I'd rather go back to a loving circumstance versus being somewhere that now I'm tolerated. My kids are tolerated because clearly he didn't want to be there. He was just, you know, paying the bills. So, you know, you do have to rebuild and align yourself, and nobody wants a broken home for their kids. But I'd rather my kids see that, hey, I do have that one parent that's committed to seeing us be our best. She's committed to being her best, and we're okay, versus, oh, my mom is crying. We don't know where dad is. We don't know how this is going to be from day to day because we haven't created a stable environment, all for the sake of just saying both parties are there. So I think people become, or women become divided, or they don't want to look at like, oh, my relationship or my marriage was a failure and I left. So they stick out a bad situation all for the sake of holding face to other people to say, oh no, we're okay. And they're really, really broken in the inside.
Yeah. 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 You have to give yourself permission to be okay, not just look okay. And that's why, like, again, for me, why I feel this work is valuable, because as each individual, we individually grow, become empowered, you know, become more in love with ourselves and with life, and are expressing that. That's how we get true cultural change. You can't legislate it. You can't have religions like try to tell you what to do. If you don't have true change in an individual, it's just going to be surface at best. And so as each of us go through these like processes of ascending and evolving and growing, we can continue to like change this trend culturally and generationally. So now we don't have daughters and granddaughters and sons and grandsons having to make these same decisions, because if we taught them, oh, I'm gonna be on purpose, I'm gonna give myself permission to be powerful, I'm gonna do all of these things, again, by watching us model it, that's how we get the change at a greater level as well. There was something else that you brought up that I wanted to talk about, and I can't think about what it was. Thank you for sharing, by the way. Hey, Google, I'm working. Nope, go ahead and talk to me.
I need you.
Okay, we need to sit down and be still then. There we go. Okay. What was it? Oh, yeah. So that's the other thing. All right, go on, baby. Is this, you know, the energy. Like, so often we only have, bye, baby. We only have one rubric of like gauging success culturally, right? And that's usually dollars, the house, the retirement fund, if you have health insurance or not, and how many raises you get and what kind of income you make. But you know, brought up a great point that I resonated with myself in making my decision was, is it worth like the spiritual or the emotional like messaging and like, again, like that, I don't say depravity, but like in your soul of having to watch this poor modeling of manhood or marriage or what have you, just so that I can say that we are financially secure. You know, like this spiritual, emotional part is also important, not just the financial bread and butter kind of stuff. And I also wanted to say too, I'm not the she club, man hater club leader. I know I sound like it a lot. But again, I have also seen women that go very valiantly with a lot of courage and bravery and vulnerability into their marriages that are not abusive, but they are just in like maybe like relative neglect, and say, hey man, like I really love you. Are you here to do this? It's not about always ditching the scene. That's a personal decision, because you can very much also practice your personal empowerment eye to eye with that person in the intimacy and the container of marriage, the same way that you can with your parent or your girlfriend or again your boss, sometimes staying, so again, I'm not advocating, I always sound so militant. I don't want people to think like, she's going to tell you to get a divorce. It's not about that. If your truth is divorce, that's what I support. If your truth is staying married, that's what I support. If your truth is whatever, I support that. For me and my story, it happened to be, you know, this particular outcome. But there's many people that, and that's honestly in some ways an even bigger bravery, because you have to look that person that you live with in the eye every day and emotionally get up and like go to bat every day with that person and like bring your best self and be loving and be forgiving. And that's hard. That is really hard to do. That is not for the faint of heart. And you can have the reward and the glory in either scenario. It just depends on what your own personal journey is with that. Again, there's not one way that's preferred or a way that it's supposed to look, which is very counterculture, because very many people will say, oh, you should stay married no matter what, right? Like that's definitely a message that we get. And I don't think that personally. So. All right, well, I hope that you guys got something for your journal notes. Any last questions? Any last comments? Is it coming together? Like, because again, like the purpose is like the sneaky ways that we have this energy drain that we don't, because we always think that flipping off your boss and walking off the job like Jerry Maguire is the big empowering thing to do. And it's not. We have these energy drains in subtle, sneaky ways all the time. And I'm hoping to bring attention to them so that we can start identifying like the true loss of power in these normal everyday relationships and normal decisions that we make day to day. So that's kind of what I'm hoping too, is to get a little bit more clarity. Because if you can't identify where the hole is at, you can't fill the hole. You know, like the little boy with his finger in the dike, you know, that bridge, you know, you have to know where the hole's at so you know what to patch up. So I'm hoping to get a little bit more clarity from a different point of view about what might be draining out the power, you know, in everybody's specific circumstance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean,
Michelle, you were so quiet today.
I had a rough yesterday.
Oh.
It was all good in the end, but yeah, it was rough.
Good. Okay, well, I'm going to do a timeout. Don't nobody go nowhere. Thanks for coming, everybody. And I'm going to stop.